I was just talking about, Jack being here for the first time, and I kind of want to tell a story. It's not actually my story, but it's similar to a story. Nathan. It's not my story, but it's similar to an experience I had when I was growing up, because when I was 6, I moved 30 miles away from where I'd grown up. And that doesn't sound a lot to people in the States, but in Scotland, that's like half the country. And it felt really, really far away. And I went to a new school. I'd only done the kindergarten. I ended up in primary 1, and I did not know anyone. And it was really hard. And this is a story about a boy called Jeremy, the same thing. His parents had moved him to a new area, and he went to school, and he did not know anyone. And that's hard. Have you ever gone to a place where you don't know anyone? I mean, at least when you come here, you know people, your parents, you know me, and you know other people. But Jeremy didn't know anyone. And it was Valentine's Day, it was his first day. And everyone in the class was making cards for each other and giving candy to each other. And Jeremy didn't know anyone. So he just sat there and stared at his desk, not looking at anyone. Because he felt really out of it. He felt like, no one was paying any attention to him. And so then it came to, recess, and so they all went out to play. And Jeremy went outside, but it was really cold because it was kind of February. You know how it's been cold here recently? Well, it was really cold, so he thought, I'm going to go back in and get a hat. So he went back in to get his hat from the classroom, but then he saw all the candy that his children had brought. So you know what he did? He was feeling so bad, he took some of the candy, and he went to the toilet and ate it all. And then he felt sick, because that's what happens when you eat too much candy. But then he felt really bad. He felt sick in another way. He felt sick in the sense that he had done something wrong. You know when we've done something wrong? I mean, maybe you've not done something wrong, but I have, and I feel awful. Well, he was feeling really bad, so he was in the toilet, and he started crying. And then the classroom came, but Jeremy didn't go back to the classroom. And Mrs. Watson, the teacher, was a good teacher, and she noticed that the new child who was in the class wasn't there. So she went looking for him, and then she heard the crying in the bathroom. And so she knocked on the door and asked him his name, and he said, and he was covered in candy, so he couldn't really lie about it. So he said, I'm sorry, I felt really bad. I took the candy, and I felt really bad because I was left out. Now I feel really bad because I ate all the candy, and I feel really bad because I ate this candy from other children. There's a lot to feel bad about there. And the teacher was really good. Mrs. Watson said, let me call your mum. This has been a hard day for you. And so his mother came to pick him up. Well, you can imagine when he got home and he explained to his parents what happened, he felt really bad. He said, well, have a shower, have something to eat and feel better. That's what my mum always used to say to me. Have something to eat, you'll feel better. Explains why I'm this size, really. And so eventually he went to sleep, and he got up the next day. He said, I really don't want to go to school. The children will be so annoyed with me. I'll be really embarrassed, and I don't want to go to school. And the teacher said, his mum said, no, go to school. Eventually just apologize and people will understand. But what he didn't know, he got to his classroom and he walked in and he didn't look at any of the children, didn't look at any of the teachers, just looked at his desk. And what do you think was on his desk? A big cake with welcome to our new friend, Jeremy. And what had happened in the previous day, the teacher decided, she started talking to the children about what happened, and the children said, I feel really bad because I saw he was by himself, but I didn't reach out and talk to him. And someone else said, yeah, I thought about giving him some of my candy, but I didn't. So really bad. So let's make him a card and let's make him a cake so that when he comes in tomorrow, he won't feel so bad. Well, what happened? That started a tradition in the classroom that any time a new child came to the class, they made a cake and a card saying, welcome to my new friend. And that's what we're trying to talk about today in today's service, about our culture of welcome. How do we welcome new people? Because you might have new children in your classroom today, and it's going to be really hard for them, because they may not know anyone. So it's up to you to kind of make them feel welcome. I don't expect you to bake a cake right away. Maybe you can write them a little note, or maybe just say, hello, thanks, or come and sit by me. And that's how we make people feel welcome when we don't know them.
Passover this year starts on Wednesday, April 5th, after sundown. as all Jewish holidays do. God said, "Let there be light," which indicated there was God before there was light. Thus, Jewish holidays begin at the first sign of darkness, the first sign of God. Or at least that's something someone once told me, and I like the explanation. Passover is a holiday, it is a meal, and it is a story. It is the story of a group of people escaping persecution and slavery. It is a story of vindication of wrongs that were done. It is also a story of miracles, where the arc of the moral universe bent towards justice. It is a story of the Jews' escape from slavery. Jewish people retell this story each year to remind us that we were once slaves in the land of Egypt. It reminds us to be grateful for our freedom, to recognize that there are many people today who do not have the freedoms that we enjoy, and that we should continue to fight for the freedom of all people. Growing up Jewish, but not very religious, the experience of sitting down at the table and being reminded of where I came from kept me grounded in the Jewish tradition. It reminded me that I was a little bit different than my Christian friends who were decorating Easter eggs and enjoying their Easter baskets. For the first 2 nights of the holiday, we sit down as a family for the Passover Seder. Seder means order. And throughout the story, there are important rituals that all Jewish families repeat each year. Lighting the candles, saying prayers, washing hands, blessing the matzah, eating the ritual foods, drinking wine, bitter herbs to remind us of the hard times, dipping them in salt water to remind us of the tears that were shed. Gratitude is ultimately at the heart of the Passover Seder. We are thankful as a people for what God did for us, and every year we are reminded so that we will never forget and so that it will never happen again. The Passover table is a table of loved ones and strangers, of family and friends. We begin by welcoming anyone who is hungry, an idea that comes straight from the book of Exodus. You shall not oppress a stranger, since you yourself know the feelings of a stranger, for you also were strangers in the land of Egypt. At the end of the meal, we raise up the matzah and say, "This is the bread of destitution that our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Anyone who is famished should come and eat. Anyone who is in need should come and partake of the Pesach sacrifice." Now we are here. Next year we will be in the land of Israel. This year we are slaves. Next year we will be free people. This proclamation of radical hospitality is at the heart of the story that reminds us that all people matter, that we must welcome all to our table, that we must not become too comfortable in our privilege, and that we must continue to fight so that all people can be free.
I'm a liar. I thought I should start my sermon with that. Now, it probably requires a bit of explanation. So I need to go back 23 years to this time. And it was Thanksgiving, and I had a friend over visiting from Scotland, my friend called Angus. You'd never guess he was from Scotland. And him, myself, and Natalie, my partner, we were going up to Mendocino for a few days. And it was we're leaving on Thanksgiving Day. But Natalie has got this, we call him Uncle Bill, who lives up in Mendocino County, but he's really my mother-in-law's uncle, Natalie's great uncle. And Natalie and I always said, Uncle Bill, the nicest man in the world. Because he was incredibly nice, and he was 90 years old at the time. And he had this huge family. He had 2 daughters, but they had all these different members of the family. There was divorcees, there was great-grandchildren, but they would all gather for Thanksgiving. And so we were going up, and we said, well, we'd like to visit you, Uncle Bill, but we don't want to come for food because we know that's a lot of trouble. You've got a big family, but we'd just like to drop by maybe for a dessert. He said, oh, that would be great. Just come on in. That would be lovely to see you. So we got there, and we actually got there a little bit early, and we thought, well, we better wait till the dinner's over. And so we waited, and we did some hiking around there. Then we arrived at the house, and there was about this long table, probably about the length of this chancel, with people there all eating food. And of course, we just wanted to creep in, but they were still in the middle of the meal. And of course, Uncle Bill, being Uncle Bill, just said, where are those two Scottish boys? Bring them in. Move out, make room. And everyone just opened up the space. And 3 seats for Natalie, Angus, and I appeared. Food arrived without even being asked for and arrived there. And we just arrived there, and everyone was so welcoming. And I realized I felt incredibly welcome. I said, why was that so welcoming? And it's because they went to a lot of trouble. It was a real hassle for them. And why I'm a liar is I often say when I show up to places, I say, don't go to any trouble. Who else says that? But really, to feel welcome, you want people to go to trouble. You know, it really is when people make that special effort, you feel welcome. Now, I realize by saying all this, you're never going to invite me to your house now because I've got so much judgment. But I think that we actually, we say a lot of things that we don't really mean, and that's what I mean about being a liar. Like, you say, oh, don't go to any trouble, and you go show up, and if they don't go to any trouble, that's just fine. But the people who don't go to trouble, it does make you feel really special. You realize the effort they went to. We joke in Scotland, and I'm from the west of Scotland, which is considered a very friendly and warm place, not temperature-wise, but community-wise. Whereas the east of Scotland, we don't consider it very friendly. We always joke in Scotland when you arrive, someone will say, well, you'll have some tea, you'll have some dinner then. Whereas if you go to the east coast of Scotland, they'll always say, well, you've had your tea then. I think there's a truth to that, but I hope there's no one from east of Scotland here. So. But I think the same thing goes for a religious community. I mean, you think about how do you invite people when they arrive at your home, your house, your apartment, wherever you live. You probably do go to trouble. I mean, I feel there's nothing more embarrassing for me than someone to show up at my house unannounced and seeing it in the mess it usually is. I want a little bit of warning so I can tidy up and make them feel welcome. And they probably don't notice that I did that, but it was important for me to do that. But you think about how do you make people feel welcome in your home? I presume you don't ignore them. You answer the door. Invite them in. You probably offer them a drink. You invite them a seat. You probably give them the best seat with the best view. How do you invite people into this religious community, this religious home many of us consider? Do we go to the same efforts to make people feel welcome? And if we're not, why not? If you consider this religious home, why don't you show people the same hospitality that we show people when they arrive where we live? I think that's a challenge. And we hear a lot of talk now about radical hospitality. Now, I've been a minister for 14 years now, and I don't think I know what that is. It's something that's more talked about than practiced. What does radical hospitality mean? It certainly doesn't mean ignoring people. It really means connecting with people. And one of the things I don't like about a lot of the literature about radical hospitality is very transactional. We do this, then people will come back. And I think that misses the whole spiritual, theological grounding for it. You welcome people because they exist. You show people kindness, you show people compassion, you show people love because they are present with you, whether they're here for the first time or they're here for the 400th time. That's the grounding for hospitality. And if you actually look at the word, the roots of the word, hospitality, this hospice, this hospital, it's all about caring for others. That's the root of the word. So I think it's really important to look at that. What is that grounding for it? Is to make people feel comfortable, to make people feel welcome. And my daughter Isla often talks about sometimes to make other people feel comfortable, you need to make yourself uncomfortable. It's not easy to go up and talk to a stranger, to see someone by themselves. It can be I know some of us are introverted. I'm not one of them, as you may know. But some are introverted, and it's really hard to go up. But it's how you can ask people their name. And in the children's story I was talking about, that boy was so upset because he was all alone. He didn't know anyone. And people who show up to our religious community for the first time do not know anyone. I remember when I first attended the San Francisco Unitarian Universalist Church, I met this woman on my second time there, and she said, I can't remember her name, I think it was Angela, but she came up to me and said, my goal every Sunday is to meet 3 people I don't know. I don't know you. I'm Angela. And hello. I said, how many people are you meeting today? He said, well, you're my first, so I can only talk for a while, but I'm going to meet 2 more. So, okay. How much time do I have? But she did that every Sunday. San Francisco's a larger church, but I'm not even going to invite you to think about speaking to people. I'm going to ask you to notice. In coffee hour, take a break and look around, and do you see anyone by themselves? They may be long-time members, they may be first-time visitors, they may be children. Just notice them. Then look inside. What do you think you should do? Go up, speak to them. Make them a card, make them a cake, I don't know. But I think that's, all I'm going to ask you to do is notice when you see people by themselves. I know the worship associate, like Liz, I've got instructions from me as I do, is my goal after Sunday is to meet new people. It's not time for church business. I don't arrange any meetings till 12:15. I give myself 45 minutes afterwards to meet new people, to connect with congregants, to deal with pastoral care issues. It's about connecting. So this time, the social time after worship, is part of worship. When we finish the worship service here, that's not the end of worship. That's the beginning of connection. That's the beginning of exploring whatever worship topic we're talking about. So I invite you, just notice the people around you. Smile. You don't even have to speak to them, just smile and nod. Noticing is the beginning of hospitality. And it should not be transactional. We do it because someone who shows up, their very presence is worthy of compassion, of kindness and love. And the African community, I've got this idea, the spirit of Ubuntu, which is belonging in community. And Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the great anti-apartheid activist, says this: Africans have a thing called Ubuntu. It is about the essence of being human as part of the gift that Africa will give the world. It embraces hospitality, caring about others, being willing to go that extra mile for the sake of another. We believe that a person is a person through other persons, that my humanity is caught up and bound inextricably with yours. When I dehumanize you, I inexorably dehumanize myself. The solitary human being is a contradiction in terms. Therefore, you seek to work for the common good because your humanity comes into its own in community, in belonging. Those are the words of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Now, that idea of belonging is so important. We often talk like home is where you can go and they'll always welcome you. I want us to go further than that. Home is where you go and people are pleased, they're ecstatic to see you, they welcome you, whether it's your first time or your 500th time. They're excited to see you. And we don't just welcome other identities, we embrace other identities. When you come here, whatever your identity, you are part of this religious community, because everyone that brings here co-creates this community together. And we do it joyfully, we do it responsibly, and we do it with an engaged commitment to make this religious community a welcoming place. And we're all dealing with the after effects of the pandemic. This learning to re-socialize and engage has been difficult for many of us. Our fabric of our social structures, be it family or be it the wider social structure, have been kind of frayed over the pandemic. So it's going to take extra work to re-engage. And I invite each of us, as Jen said, to help others connect to this community, because it's not just my role, it's not just Jen's role, it's all of our role. We need to look at how can we connect closer to the community, and how can we help others connect. And do it joyfully. It's not a transaction that, oh, we hope we do this because someone will come back. We do this because whoever comes in this door, we want to manifest divine love, which is the calling of our Unitarian Universalist tradition, of putting that divine love, that love of all humanity at the center of our religion, and make that manifest through our actions and through our presence. And the new value statements that are being proposed to replace our principles, they talk about this. They talk about, in generosity, they say, we covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith and presence. To share our faith and presence. And our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. We do this because through our relationships, that is where I think the divine exists for most Unitarian Universalists. That relationship from one to the other. That is divine, that is sacred, and we hold our human relationships up as of ultimate meaning in our life. And to be welcoming, to be a culture of welcome, we need to be intentional about that. And when we meet people, we want to manifest that they are loved, they are worthy of love. And as I've said many times, I said it a few weeks ago, they're loved and there's nothing they can do about it. That is our ultimate message. Because I think by making people feel welcome, it's about this intentional invitation to deeper relationships, deeper involvement and deeper connection. That's what religious community strives to do. So I invite you all to look inside and say, do you really feel in your hearts, deep in your soul and deep in your spirits, that we are a religious people? Are we a religion of faith? Are we a spiritual community? And if so, how do you want to manifest that within these walls and in the wider community? Because I think if we can really engage that spirit of Ubuntu, we will be taking that step to be radically hospitable, whatever that is.